This week we're talking about the vampires, and the probably the best point of entry to talk about them is Dracula, the most famous, kind of the most typical of vampires. Although, if you look at it closely, there seems to be a lot of faces to Dracula, perhaps as some kind of a hero with a thousand faces, as we have mentioned before. Dracula can be more or less old, more or less young, more or less dangerous, more or less scary, more or less appealing. Sometimes looking like he has a lot of hair, sometimes he has a little bit less hair. It's not clear exactly who this Dracula is, although he is in many stories and has remained through our imaginary for quite some time. Now, any way we look at it, whoever the actor is that portrays this Dracula, he's also kind of a part of a much larger mode of stories besides the vampire. It is part of a kind of emblematic of what we call Gothic era, and so obviously partly because this is an Eastern European character. And of course, this is where the Gothic aesthetic comes from, and also because it is within the dark and scariest parts of our lives. Dracula can be portrayed in a variety of ways, including in the bottom right corner there, the character named as Nosferatu, which is the off-brand Dracula. Somebody wanted to adapt the Bram Stoker book, but couldn't get the rights to it, so made a vampire that looked slightly different enough, but named him Nosferatu, and this is how this character here is Dracula, but not. Now, you may know that Dracula is patterned after Vlad the Impaler, a ruler in Wallachia, which would be modern-day Romania. Here, the story about Vlad the Impaler is told from Chalco a medieval Greek writer, Greek in the sense of the Eastern Roman Empire here. So a little bit further down the line, when we typically think of Greek writers, we think of Plato and Aristotle, which would be ancient Greece. This is modern Greece, albeit within the Eastern Roman Empire. So in the modern era and very close to Eastern Europe in the context that we are talking about here. Vlad the Impaler is the son of Vlad the Second, so Vlad the Impaler is Vlad the Third. Vlad the Second was the illegitimate son of a prince in Wallachia, and was for the spent most of his life in exile in Luxembourg, not able to rule in his own country, no, to claim his own country because of the political disputes between Wallachia and the Ottoman ruler. So modern day Ottoman Empire would be centered around Turkey and Constantinople, the Eastern Roman Empire, the one we are talking about here. So there's this fight between Muslims and Catholic happening in this area, and Vlad the Second, as much as Vlad the Third, are taken into this fight. Vlad the Third is taken into hostage for a while by the Sultan to put pressure on his dad, and eventually his older brother, is murdered. His father is murdered, and eventually Vlad the Impaler becomes in charge of the area that he is in. So the technical term for his position is voivode. This is what makes Vlad the Impaler, where he gets his name, is fighting against the Ottomans, and especially the such scenes that are depicted here in the engraving on the right and in the text in Chalco. The Sultan's army entered into the area of the impalement, which was 17 stades long and 7 stades wide. There were large stakes on there, which it was said about 20,000 men, women, and children had been spitted. impaled, quite a sight for the Turks and the Sultan himself. The Sultan was seized with amazement and said that it was not possible to deprive of his country a man who had done such great deeds and who had such a diabolical understanding of how to govern his realm and its people. And he said that a man who had done such things was worth much. The rest of the Turks were dumbfounded when they saw the multitude of men on the stakes. There were infants, too, affixed to their mothers on the stakes, and birds had made their nest on their entrails. Vlad followed the Sultan's army and killed anyone who broke away, whether a cavalry raider or a Zap. Well, this is where Vlad the Impaler gets his his reputation, I guess, and his moniker, if you will. Um, So we are talking here about it's essentially a field full of stakes and lots of people impaled on them, women, children. So kind of indiscriminate killing in a variety of ways, and obviously the kind of character that is feared throughout the kingdom. Um, as a result, Vlad the Impaler is somewhat of a controversial figure in the Romanian history and politics. Here, a statue of Vlad the Impaler in the modern day. This isn't now modern day Romania, but the term Wallachia back then derived from Germanic people to describe another group that is non-Germanic. So it is a Slavic group of people that is, again, foreign to the Germanic people, foreign to the Ottomans, kind of related to the people who eventually become the Welsh, Cornwall, Walloon, and all that. So kind of a various group of some sort, but Vlad the Impaler is mostly remembered as an opponent both of Christianity coming from the north and of Islam coming from the south, and this is really what captures his kind of unique place in the history of that country and mostly of Romanian nationalism because well he was fighting against the two larger empires around him and kind of trying to make a space for himself. Nevertheless, he is mostly remembered for the Impaler stuff, and well, here put side by side with Hitler, one-on-one villain from Vlad the Impaler to Adolf Hitler, kind of the definition of medieval in the way that we understand it today, and probably because of the way laws are working out here, probably would be considered kind of a mass murderer or some kind of a genocidal leader, so not necessarily something that is worth bragging about in most countries, especially in terms of history. But the idea that that Dracula, which is his name, he is part of the Dracul family. We'll get back to that in a second. Is kind of on some kind of level with Hitler is interesting because well, Hitler is real, and Hitler has a very very established, proven record of terrible things. Dracula himself is well, is more of a mythical figure in this regard, and so whether this pulls Hitler more into the myth or more Dracula into the reality is very very difficult for us. But because this is really how we tend to live our lives, it is interesting to connect these mythical parts to the reality. There is a song slash epic poem that exists called the Gypsyad, recorded by the Romani people of Romania. So this is kind of where the name comes from. Roma comes from Romania because a lot of the people of Eastern Europe who were nomadic at the time come from this particular group, and part of their literature or their history have this epic poem, which is partly a spoof, partly an homage to the Iliad, refers to Vlad the Impaler. O artful muse, who in your days of yore did sing to Homer of some mice and frogs, come down to me as well as chant of lore that has been sown and reaped by gypsy sorts, when Vlad the Impaler made them free to go and gave them arms and strips of land to hold of, when these wretches wanted to elect a king to rule on themselves a thief, and how, the relinquishing galore their hearths, they gripped the guns in valiant relief. So right here we are pretty straightforward in the hero conceit that we have talked about a few weeks ago. The poor peasants of Romania were ready to take up arms, following the example of Vlad the Impaler. So the kind of this band of this ragtag band of gypsies that is willing to fight for the liberty of their country, and allegedly get back to wherever they were coming from after that, like all good heroes would expect you to do. So I mentioned earlier, so his title officially is Voivode, and he is named Dracula. And there's a footnote here that we'll get back to in a second, but Vlad II is Count Dracul. He is Dracula, the son of Dracul. The voivode did not remain satisfied with mere prudent measures of defense with an army. He crossed the Danube and attacked a few Turkish troops that were stationed in his neighborhood, but this attempt, like those of his predecessors, was only attended with momentary success. Muhammad, the Sultan on the Turkish side, Ottoman side, having turned his arms against him, drove him back to Wallachia, whither he pursued and defeated him. As far as the historical record shows, from the European point of view, the Western European point of view especially, the military exploits of Vlad the Impaler are not that impressive. Well, now it's kind of difficult to know whether this is a way for the British to diminish his accomplishments or to make him less scary. But again, conflicting accounts of who this person was. So the author of these words is William Wilkinson, an Englishman appointed to Turkey as a trading partner, or as a trading point of contact. So it might have been kind of a political move to make these notes about the politics of the time, and especially to kind of diminish the possibility that British traders might have been massacred by this foreign ruler. Wilkinson makes a note, like I said, Dracula in the Wallachian language means devil. The Wallachians were, at the time, as they are present, used to give this a surname to any person who rendered himself conspicuous either by courage, cruel actions, or cunning. So, not quite a devil the way that we typically think of, and kind of again adding to the mystique, right? This Dracula is a devil, just a devil that has mostly a cute aspect. Here's a few definitions of the word devil in the Romanian dictionary. So drac means devil or deuce. So right, we're in the euphemism domain here. He the devil, what the deuce, what the devil of a noise, how the deuce take him, the deuce is in him, what deuced bad weather. Also, probably worth noting that the word Dracul can also be associated with, as you see on the bottom right there, Old Nick. So to call somebody an Old Nick would be to call them a Dracul. So kind of old old geezer. Not sure how would be the best way to say that otherwise, but essentially Satan, of course, that would be the again the euphemism for Satan, but kind of again, right, a cute impish category, so not all the way evil, I suppose. Also, you might be wondering why somebody, especially a leader, might go by this name Devil, is because perhaps the name would also refer to a dragon. Here, another account from Western Europe. Hunyadi after this tried in vain to rally the troop, and was himself obliged to fly from the field of battle and seek refuge in Wallachia, whose voivode, Vlad, surnamed Dracul, the dragon or the devil, the word having both signification, was an ally of Ladislaus, and then sent 4,000 men to reinforce the Christian army. Vlad, however, threw Hunyadi in prison, and shortly afterwards liberated him without even demanding a ransom. So the family name might be referring to dragon. He is part of the house of Draculesti. So again, this is a kind of a symbol for the family. According to the name to the historians, the name Draculesti comes from a order of the dragon that existed. So referring to the Crusades, so inspired by the Christians, and again, right, fighting against the Muslims. This is kind of a somewhat of a halfway a secret society, halfway a knight's order. So. So this Dracula family is attached to the war, attached to the history, the heraldry of the dragon. But it is also very interesting that the symbol of the dragon itself tends to be also associated with the devil. This is from the book of Revelation. The great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan, who deceived the whole world, was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brethren has been thrown down, he who accuses before our God and day and night. And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony, and did not love their life even when faced with death. Oh, for this reason, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has only a short time. So the dragon, the devil, is kind of this primordial enemy, and the crusading order uses the word of the dragon as this. They are going to defeat the dragon. Of course, they are not the devils in this context. They are fighting the devil. So this opposition between good and bad, this opposition between the known and the unknown, and also the snake, serpent, who's also a dragon, who's also the devil. You know, all of the symbolism lines up here. In fact, there's a bunch of explanations as to why the name came about, and especially you have a similar situation that happens with the vampires themselves. Here from Wilson in a book on Eastern European folklore tells us of the various origins for the word vampire. Miklosic, a late 19th century Austrian linguist, suggests in its influential work Etymology der Slawischen Sprachen, of the Slavic language, that the word vampire and its Slavic synonyms, upur, upir, upur, are all derivatives of the Turkish where, meaning witch. So maybe the name vampire comes from the Turkish witch. So perhaps the name vampire was given to him by his enemy, which would make sense. The second theory subscribes to a classical origins of the terms. Summers, for example, refers to an unidentified authority claiming the Greek verb to drink and a possible source of a vampire. Another etymological explanation along this line was proposed by Herrenberg in the 18th century. Hock quotes the German scholar as saying that he bears the word and has the word with him, which is the one who drinks the blood, and who is fighting against the people. So blue. I don't know. You can see my cursor on here. Doesn't matter. Blut, B-L-U-H-T, is blood. Dras vam. So vam being the to drink, the origin of here. So this is the blood drinker. Third theory, which advocates the Slavic origin of the world, has now gained almost universal acceptance, and the root noun underlying the term is considered to be the Serbian verb bamjup. I'm not sure what that means, but you get the idea. So nobody knows exactly where this word vampire comes from, but it appears pretty much everywhere. But really, at the end of the day, whether it is a witch or a blood drinker or something, it's not exactly clear to anyone where this word came from, especially because the Romanians themselves don't seem to use that word vampire. However, they use another word called strigoi. At the birth of a child, each one present takes a stone and throws it behind him, saying, "This into the jaws of the strigoi," a custom which would suggest Saturn and the swaddled up stones. As long as the child is unbaptized, it must carefully be watched over for fear of being changed or harmed by a witch. A piece of iron or broom laid beneath the pillow will keep spirits away. So strigoi, witch, we talked about just in the last slide. Vampire could mean witch. Perhaps this is another one of those spirit to soul transactions. We are talking about a word that is very difficult to make sense out of from another religion, from another culture, and so it is perceived as this spirit, this bad spirit that is coming from another place. In fact, some Romanian literature tends to have two different types of vampires, or really two different stripes of strigoi. Strigoi V, the live strigoi, and strigoi morti, the dead strigoi. Kind of like we had the zombie astral and zombie cadaver, the zombie that's alive and the zombie that's dead. So, whether a vampire is a zombie or a zombie is a spirit, or all of these things are just a way to make sense of the boogans that exist in somebody else's folklore is really up for conversation now.